Our first presenter is Louise Geldenhuys, and Louise is an ecologist. This is my first time seeing your face, so it's really nice to meet you in person, Louise. We've corresponded via email before this. She works with the Northern Cape Department of Agriculture, Environmental Affairs, Rural Development and Land Reform, and is based near Springbok in the Western Cape. But this evening, she's going to be taking us on a virtual journey along the Northern Cape coastline and sharing a little bit of information about its biodiversity, the landscape, and her involvement in citizen science there. So over to you, Louise.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos, for introducing me. Can I just make sure if you can all hear me?
We can hear you fine. Thanks, Louise.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you going to do a presentation? So you need to share your screen?
Yes.
Great.
Good.
Excellent. Over to you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so this talk is a bit of a journey, and it's lots of photos, and there's only 2 graphs, so I hope you are not expecting something very serious. But like Carlos said, I'm a scientist working for the Northern Cape provincial government. And I'm just going to talk a bit about what we are doing along the coast, and especially the bird monitoring, and then also how it kind of fits into citizen science projects. Just to give you a quick outline of how this presentation is going to go, I'm first going to give you a quick overview of the area, just to show you some of the landscape features and the biodiversity that's interesting. Then I'm going to talk about 2 types of bird monitoring that we are doing along this coastline. First about oystercatchers, and then about total counts of birds at specific sites. And then in the end, I'm just going to end with some remarks about citizen science projects. Okay, so just to remind you where we are, it's here in the corner of South Africa, and it's a bit of a forgotten piece of coastline. One of the problems is the distance. You have to drive very far to get there, and there's no commercial airports close by. And another problem is that most of it is mining area, so access is not generally available to the public. And it's also a very dry area. It's got the succulent Karoo biome, and in the north the desert biome, which has got both very low rainfall and low productivity, but it borders the Benguela current, which is a very rich ecosystem with high productivity. So it's an interesting place to see. So starting at the bottom, at the boundary with the Western Cape, this is a piece of the undisturbed coastline which has not been mined extensively, which is not the case north of the Namakwa National Park. You can see the Island Point, which is the boundary of the coastal and marine section of the Namakwa National Park. And this is a picture of Island Point, which got a wreck of the Namakwa piece of ship on it, which has stranded in the late 1800s, and also the Groenrivier Lighthouse. Can you see the whole slide? Because I've got a bit cut off. Okay, good.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the Namakwa National Park has got a new piece of marine protected area now in the 2019 Declaration of Marine Protected Areas. And it is bordered by the Spoeg and the Groen rivers, which are 2 closed estuaries. All of the estuaries in the Northern Cape, except for the Orange River mouth, is these closed small estuaries. They open very rarely, only under extreme flooding conditions. So they might not look important and small, but in this very arid area, they are kind of an island of water for many bird species that is not available otherwise. Okay, so moving a bit north, in the northern section of the park, there's a seal breeding colony, the Strandfontein seal breeding colony. There are 4 seal breeding colonies in the Northern Cape on the coast. The Strandfontein one is the southernmost one, and it's also the smallest one. I'll get to the others a bit later. Okay, and then north of the park you get into mining area. So this is diamond mining, and it is very destructive. Here you can see a piece of bay that's quite unique with a red cliff that's been transformed completely by diamond mining, and this is recent diamond mining. Okay, but moving further north to the other two closed estuaries, it's the Swartlenkies estuary and the Buffels estuary at Kleinsee. Just north of that estuary, there's a very large seal colony, and it's the largest one in the Northern Cape. And just to give you an idea of how big it is, in 2017, they counted more than 37,000 seal pups there. And that's just the pups, so it's a really large colony. Okay, moving even further north, you get to the real desert areas. So you can see it's not much going on at land. And the landscape gets interesting with cliffs. And this is a photo of the Buchu Bay seal colony, where there's also a seal breeding colony on these cliffs. And it's quite something to see them climbing up here, high up. There are two colonies, the Cliff Point colony and the Buchu Bay colony. That's the northernmost one in South Africa. On this map, you can also see a block called the Namakwa Forest Fossil Forest MPA. That is one of the new marine protected areas. What is interesting is that they found fossilized remains of trees like yellowwood trees here while they were doing diving for diamond mining. And this is a habitat for very rare cold water corals. So it is good that it's also now been declared as a marine protected area. There's a breeding site for bank cormorants just south of that Buchu Bay seal colony, and here you can see them on the cliffs. And this is in mining area, so if they are not mining there, it's very remote and undisturbed. It's one of only 2 bank cormorant breeding sites in the Northern Cape. The other one is at Port Nolloth on the islands there. And at the border, the northernmost point, we get to the Orange River mouth. This is a map of how it looks like. This wetland is on the Ramsar list as an internationally important wetland, but the problem is that a lot of it is degraded. It's this portion here to the south, and so now it's on the Montreal record, which means it has been changed from what it should be. And there's many reasons for this, but one reason is the river, this Orange River, it drains a lot of South Africa, but it used to be seasonal. So during the summer it would flood, and in winter it almost closed, or it should close. And when it's closed, it should back flood, so that all of this is underwater. But now with the dams and irrigation, there's a constant small supply of water. So there's no flooding and droughts, and that cycle has been broken. The interesting thing is in 2018, in April, the river was so low that it did close for the first time in decades. So then you could walk to Namibia if you wanted to. But the whole place, this whole wetland were flooded then, so it was underwater. And it stayed like that for about 8 days until people from Namibia decided that the golf course that's there on the northern bank is underwater. So they dug a channel to open it again, which is unfortunate because the longer it stays like that, the better it gets, because this area that's been degraded is also very saline, and that salt needs to be flushed out. This picture here is right at the mouth, so there you can see that small channel where the water is actually going to the sea, and that is where this is taken. So the opposite there is Namibia. Okay, so now I'm getting to the oystercatcher part of our monitoring. So since 2015, we have been doing surveys of oystercatchers along the Northern Cape Coast. We do the entire coast except for the Namakwa National Park, where we can't get close enough to the sea to see all of them. And what's interesting is that there's quite a lot of them. They've been increasing, as I think you all know already. What's also interesting is the difference in their densities between the northern part of the province and the southern part. So what these two maps show is the average number, so the total counts. On the first map, you can see there's much more of them. The density is higher around Port Nolloth and the northern part. But then the second map shows the number of pairs, so average number of pairs. The number of pairs are highest here in the most southern part of the province. And this is one of the only two graphs I'm going to show. This one shows also the difference between the northern and the southern part of the province, of the coastline. So you can see in the northern part there's much more large groups than in the southern part. And you can see that in the northern part there are less pairs than in the southern part. So I think a reason for this is that the sub-adults, pre-adults, they migrate north in big groups, and it's interesting to see the split kind of where it is. So that's around Kleins here, that's the middle. Okay, so the total counts of waterbirds that we do, we follow the coordinated waterbird monitoring technique that has been developed as a citizen science project. And we have several sites where we go in winter and summer of each year, and then we count all species that we find. This is of the Groen estuary. It's the closed estuary that you've seen in the beginning. And there are some flamingos, both lesser and greater flamingos, and there's a group of black-necked grebes that's always at the same spot. And further, there are some islands in this estuary sometimes that's used by hardklapskulls for breeding. I'm just going to go through a few of these sites. The next one is the Buffels estuary. It's a small estuary, but there's some yellow-billed ducks and red-knobbed coots and moorhen. And the next one is the McDougall's Bay Islands and Beach, which is interesting because there's breeding of both Cape cormorants and bank cormorants. And it's a kind of a hotspot along the coast because of all these cormorants and terns that you find there. And then I get to the Orange River mouth. This photo was taken about 2 weeks ago, and these are all lesser flamingos. The greater flamingos usually hangs around more to the mouth part. So this part is the backwater, so all of this is flooded when the mouth is closed. But yeah, that doesn't happen a lot. So the second graph, what's interesting here is that we've got the same data since 1979. And the gaps here are not zero counts, it's when this hasn't taken place. So we've got quite some gaps, but in 2018, we started again with this. And here you can see some very big spikes in the winter counts, and they are mostly taken up by Cape cormorants. On the count about 2 weeks ago, the winter 2020 count, we counted more than 11,000 Cape cormorants there. So I don't really know what to make of it because there's such a big outliers there. And this is just to show you what it looks like. This is just a small portion of that bank where they sit. It's really something to see. And it's good news, I suppose. So just some remarks about citizen science. We use the virtual museum, and then that QUAC counts, the coordinated waterbird counts. And the reason for using this as a provincial department is it's a good place to place these opportunistic finds that's not supposed to be made by following a strict protocol like South African Bird Atlas project. And it's also useful to have expert verification or ID of the birds. And I like that the records are publicly available, because it's no good just sitting on one computer or staying within one department. The ideal is that it can be used by everyone. The same goes for these coordinated waterbird counts. These counts have been started a long time ago, and I don't know if they get a lot of attention anymore, but it has been developed as a citizen science project. But the site boundaries and methodologies have been defined for the Northern Cape by Mark Anderson when he was still here, and there's historical data for this. So for us, it's good to continue or contribute to an existing program instead of starting a new thing where you have no historical data. And the last good thing is there's kind of a shared custody of the data. It's the same thing. It doesn't sit on one person's computer or stay within one organization. And I think that was very fast, but this is the last slide. Just to say thank you to the team. There's so many people that's been part of these surveys over the years. And there's some contact information. For the Orange River Mouth survey specifically, we're always looking for volunteers or people who want to help. The problem is just you have to get there, but anyone can contact me if you are willing. So that is it from me. Back to you, Rick.
Great, thank you very much, Louise. Lovely. Wow, that was an interesting presentation. I think it's fantastic to see this kind of data that's being collected systematically, you know, by the conservation authorities in the Northern Cape. I had the privilege to join Mark Anderson and a few others on one of the Orange River Mouth counts way back, probably in the late 90s. But yeah, just to plug what you said at the end about volunteers coming to join for those counts. It's a fantastic experience being up there and experiencing the you know, the environment up there and the conditions and the bird life and everything. A fantastic presentation, thank you. And you know, you